magic in the air. The whole group forever. Feel the magic in the air. Feel the magic in the air.
Alrighty, everybody. We are less than 20 days. We're like, what are we, like 15 days out from the World Cup?
20th or 21st?
I believe the World Cup starts the 20th with one game. I believe the 20th is a Sunday. It's just the openers.
Okay.
Everybody else starts getting rolling on the 21st. But we have officially hit the roster announcement portion of the World Cup process. I'd say we're about halfway, maybe a little over halfway through of national teams announcing their team, but today was the big day for the U.S. men's national team. Berhalter was on stage in New York today with the whole gang of paid U.S. hype boys from ESPN, the ESPN and ESPN FC. Everybody was there. But we're going to kind of jump in today right now with our instant reactions, quick thoughts on, what we think about Berhalter's decisions. He's been under a microscope, I think, for very good reason the last, 12 months or so. So we'll dive right in and jump in. Before we dive right in, though, do you have any like instant thoughts you want to share, Reed, or any?
I do, but they're too
things that stick out
just to say in the intro. I need to get into it in the meat and potatoes of the episode.
All right, let's jump into the meat and potatoes. We'll start.
I'll announce goalkeepers. You do defenders. I'll do midfielders, and you do attackers. Yeah. We'll just rotate.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll start from the back and work our way forward. So, who do we have on the plane, as they say, to Qatar for goalkeepers?
On the plane, going through TSA, we've got Ethan Horvath of Luton Town. We got Sean Johnson of New York City FC, the, I guess not anymore defending champ, but the 2021-22 MLS champ. And then Matt Turner with his recent move to Arsenal. I don't know how much he's played for Arsenal. I think that's something we've talked about a lot, is whether he will be in form, whether he'll have enough game time to be in form. But we always knew he was going to be on the plane. Do we want to just list the roster first and then get into, or do we want to go position by
jump position by position? What are your thoughts?
Zach Steffen is the big omission, obviously. Gregg Berhalter, in my mind, likes Zach Steffen. He's played him a lot through thick and thin, through really, really poor form, through really, really good form. It's very, very surprising to me to see the omission there. And I think obviously he's not at Man City anymore. I think he's gotten more game time, but I think he has been not so great for, he's in the Championship, right? Who's he with?
He's at Middlesbrough right now.
That's right. So yeah, that's the big omission with goalkeeper. I think the U.S., it's worth noting the U.S. has a very bright future at goalkeeper. Who's the guy that was linked to Real Madrid? He might have even gotten the move. It's the Chicago Fire goalkeeper. He's 17 years old. The name's escaping me. Right now, at the goalkeeper position, we're kind of in a transition. We don't have our Tim Howard, but we've got our Matt Turner. And it's to be seen whether he can stand on his head and get the U.S. through to the knockout rounds. However, it's not a bad position group, not a great position group. Matt Turner is not the best with his feet and building up for the back, which is obviously what you want. Not obviously, not everybody knows that, but that's what you want in a modern goalkeeper, being able to build up through the back, especially when you're going to have these center backs that are not ball-playing center backs. So I think overall I would rate this group a B-, C+, and the big surprise being Zach Steffen.
Yeah, so for me, I understand not taking Stefan or Slonina.
Gabriel Slonina, right?
And he's at Chelsea. He was linked to Real, but Chelsea ended up getting it done. Well, he's not at Chelsea. He got loaned back to Chicago Fire, but purchased by Chelsea this summer. So for me, I don't think there's a huge question at who's going to start necessarily at this position. No. I do think it will be Matt Turner. I think it would have been Matt Turner regardless of the other selections. So I'm trying to – I mean, let's be honest. For the most part, you're goalkeeper 2 and 3 are somewhat irrelevant in a tournament like this, barring an injury.
Yeah.
If you already had your starter going in, I'm not going to heavily fault Berhalter on his 2 and 3 selections. However, it is a little surprising that you don't give Stefan the opportunity to at least be on the plane, even if he's not going to be your starter. At least put him on the plane, and you don't have Slonina on the plane. For me, I would like to, if I'm going to take I don't even necessarily want to say a flyer, because I don't think Sean Johnson is a flyer. I mean, he played phenomenally. I think he is probably, well, almost definitely our third goalkeeper at this point, and he played fantastically in the MLS last season. Made the All-Star team, won the championship last year, so had a great year. However, he still is in the MLS and probably not our goalkeeper of the future based on his age. So for me, even if it's just being on the plane, being at training, being in Qatar on a World Cup team, I would have much rather seen Gaga or Stefan. I always say Stefan, and I don't know why.
It's because we're in that soccer mode, and we think we need to say last names with a little bit of flair. But no, this is American.
we're American.
Zach
what am I doing?
Stefan, baby.
But he's 20.
Twang if you want to. Zach Stefan of the United States.
He's 27. So if you don't think Slonina Gaga is going to be ready for the next World Cup, it's a guy that I would at least want on the plane and getting that experience of being at the World Cup in case Matt Turner doesn't work out, because I'm very high on Matt Turner. Throughout qualifying, I was preaching Matt Turner, despite his inability to play the ball at his feet.
You got receipts on that? You got receipts on praising Matt Turner?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll retweet them after the episode.
As long as you got your receipts.
The game Stefan got and Turner didn't, I was very displeased. I am very firmly behind Matt Turner. So again, it's not a question of who's going to start for me. I would absolutely have Turner.
Let me ask you this real fast. On their day, who is the best goalkeeper the United States has?
I think it depends on what facet of goalkeeping you're looking for. I think this U.S. team in this group should be concerned about shot stopping. And I think Matt Turner is the better shot stopper of the two. We have two very good...
Less mistake prone, absolutely.
We have very good outside backs, not quite wing backs, but kind of play like wing backs in their own right in Dest and Robinson. Right. Will they be healthy? But I think there's enough ability to play the ball out of the back, outside goalkeeper. I would go with Matt Turner as my starter over Stefan, over Horvath, over anybody else available. For me, the question at this position was just, why not take your third goalkeeper as your 18-year-old wonder kid goalkeeper of the future,
who's
just to get
in 3 World Cups for you in the future?
And that's everything I've heard about him. Is he is the next Tim Howard of the U.S.
He's the dude. He is that
different goalkeeping style, but he is apparently him. Admittedly, I don't watch a lot of Chicago Fire. I'm sorry, Nick. I know you are a big Chicago Fire supporter, but I personally don't watch a lot of Chicago Fire, so I don't know a lot about him. I haven't seen a lot of him, but going off of what everybody else says about him, I would have loved to see him get at least some World Cup exposure this go around to prepare him for what that stage looks like. But at the same time, we know, I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised, because we know Sean Johnson is an MLS guy. Berhalter, one of his biggest faults is he is an MLS through and through kind of guy. So by no means am I surprised. It's just something I would have done differently if I were the underqualified manager of the U.S. men's national team. I would be sending my young wonder kid goalkeeper over to Qatar just to get that exposure.
Yeah. Man, it's a lot of time on goalkeepers. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
We'll jump right into. Do you have more on?
No. I think we'll relate some of these next two position groupings. We'll relate them back to the goalkeeper, especially when we get into the midfield and talk about our deep line playmakers. But let's talk about defenders. Give us our backliners that we're taking to Qatar.
So we're taking 9 guys with us. We have Carter Vickers from Celtic, who, unlike my Newcastle United faithful, has had some Champions League exposure, so there's a lot to like about that.
He's a former Tottenham man.
Yes, well, kind of. Did he play? Or was he just like on the roster?
He was out on loan. He was on loan at Celtic, and then they purchased him permanently this past summer.
So we have him. We have Serginho Dest, which is an obvious. Aaron Long, who is a pick. We have Shaq Moore. We have Tim Ream, who I was not surprised to see because, again, this is a guy I absolutely, without question, would have picked. But I feel like he hasn't gotten a whole lot of Berhalter support. So I was a little excited to see Tim Ream. I know I texted you with a bunch of exclamation marks that he made the team. Might not have been surprising for some people, but because of some of the other Berhalter decisions in the past and even on this team that he put out, I am a little surprised. And then we have Antoine Robinson will be the other outside back. Joe Scally is on the team. DeAndre Yedlin bringing in some veteran is an understatement presence, and then Walker Zimmerman, who we all expect to be a starting center back come the 2022 Qatar World Cup. So dive into this with me. What are your thoughts? Who do you expect to really shine? Were there any shocking omissions? Were there any shocking inclusions? Kind of where do you stand with this defensive core?
So I think, the two best defenders we have are the fullbacks. It's Jedi Robinson and Serginho Dest. When they're healthy and when they're on form, they're both Champions League players. Well, Jedi plays for Fulham, but but he's a very
in the right
capable,
league,
ball progressing, modern day fullback.
The reason he's not a fullback. The reason he's not a fullback in the Champions League is because of where he's playing.
Yes.
He couldn't do that on another Premier League team that qualified for the Champions League by any means. But if you were to see this name, pop up on, I don't know, half of probably the Champions League teams that are from those lesser leagues, you wouldn't be surprised. He would probably be one of the premier players on that team.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think our key in the back line, anybody who says different doesn't know what they're talking about. No offense to any listeners, but the strength of our back line is Dest and Robinson beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Absolutely.
They're both very solid players, the likes that we haven't necessarily seen in that fullback position for a U.S. men's national team in a little while. So it is very exciting to have ball progressing fullbacks available to us. I mean, you watch Fulham week in, week out like I do. They're one of my borderline appointment Premier League teams, and it was a noticeable difference when Jedi was unavailable. Yeah. He is very strong at progressing the ball, and I think he works really well with our midfielders. In qualification, he was one of my favorite players on the team to watch. So, yeah, I'm very comfortable at where we are at with the fullback. And honestly, for me, the roster and the lineup, the starting 11 I would put out, I'm comfortable at center back. I don't think we have the best center backs in the World Cup, obviously, by any means. But, I mean, there is absolutely nothing wrong with the center back pairing of Tim Ream, if that's who he goes with, and Walker Zimmerman. And Walker Zimmerman is one of those guys who pre-center back injuries at the U.S. was very far down the pecking order, but absolutely showed his worth in qualification. We have had some injuries at that center back position that I think were a concern at one point in time, but for a team with injuries, really strong injuries, probably our two starters at center back being out injured, not even making the team. All things considered, I'm very comfortable at that center back position from a starting 11 perspective.
About Chris Richards and who's the other one?
Oh boy,
sorry to put you on the spot. Not Miles Robinson. Is it Miles Robinson?
Yeah. Miles Robinson. Yeah. Thank you. Blanking.
Yeah, no, I'm with you here. I think I've publicly been a Walker Zimmerman supporter over the past few months. I know what he brings. He's not going to bring anything less. He's not going to bring anything more. He's a wall that's going to stand there. He might not be a big wall or an intimidating wall, but he's capable of being a wall. He's not going to progress the ball. He's not, this a ball playing center. Well, he's a ball playing center back, but not a sweeper progressing center back like you see with like a Chris Richards would be. My big issue with our center backs is, I see it with Tottenham. I see it whenever I watch the sport. The chemistry, the way the two center backs or three center backs, depending on how you play, the way they play together is more important than the talent level that's there between the players. I don't know if Gregg, having played freaking Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman together, did he I know it wasn't always that way through qualifying, but have we seen enough of a mixture to understand what is our best center back pairing? And I don't know. I think you have to have Walker Zimmerman in there. He might be captained. He's the most experienced. And I'm really high on him. He's an MLS player, but he's steady. And I don't know if we found out who his best pairing was, or who his best partner was at center back.
I'll tell you who it's not. It's Aaron Long, and I think that was my biggest takeaway from this defender group. So semi trying to be funny, but without fully trying to be funny. The guy didn't even know where to stand on the stage today.
You could put Aaron Long with Paolo Maldini at center back, and they would concede 3 goals in a game.
Like he doesn't know positioning, whether it is on the pitch or on the stage at the announcement ceremony. He looks lost.
He's got nudes of Berhalter.
He looks lost constantly, but Berhalter will not give up on him, will not move on past him.
It's the Conte Emerson thing, I swear. I
am scared. I am a little scared of who that center back pairing is going to be. If it is my starting 11, I'm feeling very confident in that center back pairing. If it's Aaron Long, I'm feeling equally as not confident in that center back pairing. So I think it's hard to tell from the roster. I think I know everybody is very upset that Aaron Long's included because of the performances we've seen from him. But we knew he was going to be included. I think the biggest question is going to be, is he going to start? Is he going to see serious minutes? Because there's other players on this roster, I think, that we have some strong questions about. Christian Roldan. Will they ever see the field? Does it matter that they made the roster? Who knows? And if that's an Aaron Long and he's just on the plane, like, sure, whatever, I don't care. But it's really going to come down to, is he our starting center back over Tim Ream? And that's where I'll really start to have an issue. So I can't believe I'm telling or encouraging people to hold judgment until we see the starting 11 on that first match day. But I'm upset about Aaron Long. I don't like Aaron Long. But I think we all knew it was likely coming. So the question is, how is Aaron Long implemented into this team? And if it is a pure bench guy, pure training ground guy, I don't think I care enough. If it is my starting center back on the first match of the World Cup of this super generation, if you will, of American talent, then I have a strong problem with it. So I am trying to reserve a little bit of judgment at this center back or at this defensive roster sheet. It really will come down to who starts in that second center back position, because I think the other 3 are locked in and have been locked in for almost a year now.
Yeah, absolutely. When healthy, for sure. I think, luckily, we have not drawn a group, unless England has all of their attacking players on form. We haven't drawn a group that's going to just beat down the barn with goals. You know, it's not. You're not going to be asked to defend Lionel Messi, Lautaro Martinez. Obviously, Dybala's out. Whoever else Argentina has, or Portugal, or whoever. It's a manageable group from a center back perspective. We won't even talk about the knockout stages because God knows what's going to happen.
Because we'll get Netherlands and we'll probably lose.
Yeah. I think obviously, we've without spending too much more time on the defenders. Chris Richards is a huge injury. He's the future of the U.S. center backs. I think when we talk about this golden generation, I think the golden generation truly will be like Pulisic's next World Cup, and when we get like a Cade Cavani and or not Cavani, I'm sorry, Cade Cowell and kind of that age group, the guys that you see beating Portugal's U18 5-0. Though that's going to be the golden generation, but it still feels to me like, having really immersed myself in educating myself on the U.S. system, this still does feel like a stopgap year because we've got guys like Aaron Long still in the conversation for starting center back.
I think that's completely accurate. I think a year ago and throughout qualifying, the U.S. soccer media vaulted this up to the best chance we've ever had at a real progression.
And Caden Clark are the 2 guys. Sorry, I forgot their names.
We've had a lot of conversation around this being the most elite team we've had talent wise, and I still think it is. But I think you're right. I think this isn't a year where we are I mean, Berhalter can say whatever he wants on stage. I don't think this is a year where we are planning on making it past the round of 16. I think this is a get out of the group, gain some experience, and exactly when we're hosting. So you have that host boost. You have your golden era at all in their prime, because I'm high on Dest and Reyna, and most of those guys are still in the first half of their 20s.
Yeah.
So they'll be at that 28, 29, 30 range, which is truly, for most outfield players, your prime years. Starting to come on the downturn, but it is your prime years. And I think it's hard to project a lot of that, because if a Pulisic gets stuck at Chelsea as a sub for 3 years, that can stunt growth and everything of that nature.
That would piss me off so much.
There is always a chance that these guys don't progress the way we see them progressing.
Yeah.
Slanina, you could say the same thing, but I do agree. I think we need to almost curb our expectations. Granted, I don't think that means letting Berhalter off the hook, because I think regardless of what we think we can maximize our output at this World Cup, I don't necessarily see this as a World Cup where I need to see a round of 16 or a round of 16 win or Berhalter out. I am a firm believer in Berhalter out campaign. Hashtag Berhalter out is something I've tweeted probably 15 to 20 times in the last 2 years. However, I do think we need to kind of reserve expectations a little bit based on A, injuries at the center back position, as we were just getting into with defenders, and B, kind of that we're still on that front half of the prime of that golden era. So I do think that is an expectation overall American fans kind of need to have, where, I mean, I'm not saying don't hope for the best, but be a little bit more realistic.
Your expectations can be to get through this group. Absolutely.
Oh, it absolutely
but
should
don't expect
be. Anything less from that, I want a notification on my phone from ESPN on November 30th that Berhalter was sacked.
Look,
if we don't get out of the group,
to God that
I want him on a
Gregg Berhalter with our golden generation, and I don't think we are. I want
Berhalter on a plane to himself home from Qatar if we don't make it out of this group.
Like the Herm Edwards fired on the field before you even get to the locker
I want him.
room.
I want the last point I want him fired in Qatar is on the tarmac.
Yeah.
If we don't make it out of this group, it's plain and simple. This squad absolutely must make it out of the group. But for me, that is the bare minimum, but also my expectation.
Yeah.
which is kind of unfair. It's a pretty fine line there, but anything less than advancing out of the group is an extreme disappointment, and anything more than making it out of the group is an extreme plus for me.
Yeah.
And that plus doesn't necessarily mean I allow Berhalter to take the reins for the next 4 years. That's something we'll likely address later. But
Absolutely.
Right now, the bare minimum for me, while I am saying temper expectations, the bare minimum for me is 100% getting out of this group, regardless of injuries at center back or what have you.
Yeah. Let's move on to midfielders. This is an exciting group of players.
The most exciting group.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even the guys that aren't on this, I've mentioned two of them already, in Cade Cowell and Caden Clark. The most exciting group on the U.S. squad. Of course, we have to lead it off with the two engines for Leeds United, Brendan Aronson and Tyler Adams. And then Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Christian Roldan, Luca De La Torre, and Kellen Acosta. Like I just said, I mean, it starts with in my mind, it starts with Tyler Adams.
Yes.
He's the X factor for the U.S. national team. If he can be a true deep line box-to-box playmaker, the U.S. will make it out of this group with relative ease. I think Yunus Musa is going to have his coming out party on the national stage.
He's got the juice.
He's got the juice. It's corn, baby. Whenever I start a career mode on FIFA, Yunus Musa is the first player that I sign every single time, without a doubt. He's an absolute unit. He looks like a Division I college football player, and he's going to be an absolute superstar in the world of soccer, in my opinion, my very, very educated opinion. And then you got Brendan Aronson, he just keeps on going. He annoys the shit out of everybody he plays. And I love the kid. I mean, I sent you the interview with him with Men in Blazers. He's he just seems like this 16-year-old American that's just like, I'm just happy to be here. Like, this is dope. His girlfriend's still in college. They've got like this college kid relationship, and then he's playing for Leeds United in the Premier League. It's like, it's so
the way
cool.
he just shrugged off that cheeky no-look goal last week. He's like, "Oh, yeah, I was looking at the guy behind me.
Was coming behind me. No,
and had a grin on his face. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
I can't get enough of Brendan Aronson. And with that, and that's where I think this is. We talked about in our group preview about England, the embarrassment of riches they have at fullback. Well, had at fullback pre-injury. I think we have a ridiculous embarrassment of riches at the midfield. I mean, you have the Musas, the Adams, the McKennies, the Aronsons, and one of those four will not start.
Look, we don't have a Pedri, but we have a very good midfield group.
I would put our midfield group, all right, not quite.
Top 7
but like,
in the World Cup.
Yeah, I was going to say top 5,
yeah.
But probably not top 5, but certainly a strong enough midfield. We'll absolutely be top
5 by the time the World Cup comes to the U.S.
Absolutely. Yeah. For this World Cup, I think not even close, a top 2 in our group.
Yeah.
And I think in today's day and age, that's where a lot of games are won, are in that midfield. So I think we are in a very good and comfortable spot. Obviously, I'm not going to put us on the level of England's midfield based off of pure talent.
Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, you don't think those
it's obvious. It's obviously not close.
James Madison,
however,
I mean, come on, those guys aren't that good.
If James Madison even makes the team, but
when does England announce their squad? By the way,
tomorrow. Tomorrow night. Southgate, though, I mean, he is the Berhalter of Europe right now. So Madison,
good comparison.
Madison could walk on to. I'll say it. He could walk on to any roster at the World Cup
in the form
and be on the roster.
Now, absolutely.
Like he could be on Brazil's roster. Is he going to start? Probably not. But is he on that roster? Beyond a shadow of a doubt. The only one maybe not.
Madison over Paqueta. They played. They're both the number
similar.
10s, right?
No, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. And if we're taking chemistry and everything out of it, because you have to in this fantasy world, then I probably would too. The only one maybe you could say he wouldn't is a healthy France, but still,
healthy France as an all-time midfield,
right? But all of that aside, it is a very, very strong midfield for the U.S. men's national team. The strongest midfield I've seen in my lifetime on this team, and it's extremely exciting. We'll give out our thoughts on who will be that starting 11, or who our starting 11 will be at the end of the podcast, and one of them does have to get cut. One of those 4 has to get cut, and it pained us to decide who we were cutting. We'll explain our reasoning later. It's
not even necessarily a cut. Think of it more of a 6th man.
Think of it as a super sub.
Because bear with me and if this person can come off the bench and make an impact, the U.S. can make it past the round of 16.
Bear with me when I call it a super sub.
Yeah.
Because it is a U.S. men's national team super sub, not a global super sub. But for us, it is a very good position to be in. And
Bruno Guimaraes off the bench,
right. I am a big fan. I'm a big fan of our 4th option at the midfield, but it is certainly not Bruno G. But without further ado, I think I'm ready.
Midfielders all day,
Yeah, I was going to say without further ado, I think I'm ready to jump into our forwards, which I think is probably
Christian Pulisic made the team.
Woohoo!
He made the team.
Outside of him, though, and Gio Reyna, and is that it? Are those the only 2 that we knew going into this for a fact? I mean, Jesus Ferrero.
I think Timothy Weah was a lock.
Weah was likely a lock. We have Ferreira, who was likely a lock, but is still an MLS player, so you can say what you will about him.
He was the MLS lock that we knew was going to make it.
There was 2 MLS locks that I knew would make it, and the second being Jordan Morris, who, much like the aforementioned other Berhalter MLS ass-kissing pick.
He also has nudes of Berhalter.
Yes, there are a couple guys that I'm
like eliminated on the algorithm by all that's referencing.
what do they have on Berhalter that
Yeah.
gets them put into this lineup? But Jordan Morris also made it, as you said, Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Josh Sargent of Norwich,
Very,
who has
very
had a
excited about that
phenomenal
addition. Yeah.
start of the season, and then Haji Wright as well made the team. This is another position though that had some questions. It's a position group that I look at and I'm excited by. Like without a doubt,
It's a young
I am
position group. It's
a position group that even the team that was selected, I am excited by it. But there are still some question marks for me. The fact that we took Jordan Morris over Pepe and Pifok, who are both playing at borderline top form right now, is a little frustrating.
Oh, Pifok is absolutely in his top form.
I mean, I mean, realistically, so is Pepe. I mean, he's playing in, I believe, the Dutch league now after not working out in the Bundesliga. So, sure, if you want to play the game,
but it's a striker and it's a confidence position.
Is the Dutch league as competitive as the MLS? Like, I say yes. It's a more talented league, but like if you want to make that argument, I'm not here to have that argument with you. But for me, it's about form, and those two are on phenomenal form right now. The numbers they're both putting up in their respective domestic leagues is phenomenal, and still we are stuck with Jordan Morris on the bench. And again, this is one that I'm trying to reserve judgment, just like Christian Roldan and just like now I can't even remember Yedlin's of the world, and Aaron Long. Like I am hesitant to pass too much judgment on the selection because it is likely that this player will never see the field.
Yeah.
But if they are never to see the field, why do I want Aaron Long on the plane at, 30 and not going to play over a Pepe who, if you are going to make a legitimate, or Pifok, I'm a huge Pepe guy, if you can't tell, but Pifok as well. But two very young strikers that if you really do want to make a push at the World Cup when we're hosting it, like we really should be giving these guys that exposure. And that's where it seems very short-sighted. It feels like a manager who is, I don't want to say grasping at straws, but doing everything he can to say, it's not on me, I picked the most experienced guys, I'm sorry the performance wasn't what you wanted, rather than a manager building for the next World Cup. And like you said, I think the next World Cup is really where we're going to make our hay and where we'll really make some noise, or have a chance at least to make some noise. So for me, it's just a question of why are the young guys not on the plane?
I wouldn't even say he's making safe picks by picking these experienced guys. He's picking the guys with the lower ceilings.
He's also picking the guys that are established U.S. players. They've been on national teams in the past. Sure. They're playing in the U.S. system. He is a U.S. soccer manager.
He's making guarded selections. I wouldn't necessarily – I don't know. Especially since they're going to be coming off the bench in most scenarios. Like, what's the difference between letting a Pifok have a go at it off the bench versus a Jordan Morris? You know, it's like Jordan Morris isn't the safer pick in that situation. He's just the more experienced pick, which doesn't always lead to a safer
But
pick.
for me, this is where it comes down to we could do a whole episode on the philosophy of American soccer, but it almost comes down to a philosophical difference.
Yes, it does.
Like, yeah. I don't think we would see Roberto Martinez, a Spanish manager who has zero ties to Belgium other than having the head coaching position, but doesn't have any real ties to that federation, making the selections that are best to win right now and win 4 years from now. I feel like it is a selection that Berhalter will go back to when contract negotiations are up for renewal or whatever that situation is for him, and can go, I am trying to further American soccer. I'm trying to have these MLS guys on the plane, on the roster, at training in Qatar. And for me, that's why it feels like a guy who is just trying to hang on to his job rather than a guy who is trying to develop a national team for the future and a national team to win at this World Cup. And that's where my biggest problem with Berhalter is. I get where he's coming from because he is on the hot seat. At the end of the day, it is still a job for him. Asking him to take risks if you will, and again, I don't necessarily agree that it's a risk, but if you had to go to your boss and say, I want to trust this outside company to develop our product rather than our home company to develop our product, and it doesn't work, then you look like you don't believe in the company. So right now he is doing everything he can to try and support U.S. soccer, and I think that will be his downfall in the end. I don't think he will be our manager come the next World Cup that we're hosting because of these decisions, but I do think that's probably where he's coming from. And while it's frustrating, I do at least somewhat understand that thought process where I am trying to better U.S. soccer. That's probably what he pitched himself as when interviewing for the job or applying for the job, whatever you will.
As his brother, like the COO or something of USA Soccer.
But right, so it is all about trying to better American soccer and not necessarily trying to win as American soccer. And there is something to be said about maybe long term, if you prove that the MLS is a viable route, it'll improve the MLS, and then it'll improve, 15 years from now, the players we can produce from the country. But right now that seems to me silly because we do have this borderline golden age of players here in the U.S. that we haven't seen in our lifetime, at least. And I can't speak to before that, but probably ever in the history of the U.S. men's national team, we've never seen this much talent this year or moving forward. And it feels like that is not his focus right now. And that's, I think, where the biggest frustration comes from. It's not necessarily about wins and losses in Qatar, because I don't think Aaron Long is going to win us or lose us a game over PFOC or Pepe. But for me, it's
Aaron
more
Long,
about that big
Aaron
picture.
Long could. I think you're
referencing
Jordan
I just
Morris.
think he's not going to play.
Yeah.
I just think like the Aaron Longs and the Jordan Morrises, I don't think they're going to play. Yeah. Like I just don't think those guys that were questioning the Roldans, the Morrises, like I don't think they're going to see the field enough to really have an impact. And if that is Berhalter's thinking, that I'm not going to need them and this just boosts the MLS's cachet, if you will, then like I get that thought process. I just adamantly, very clearly disagree with that thought process, because I'm more worried about, again, this is, like you said, a stepping stone to the next World Cup, in my opinion. We aren't going to make the semifinals. Breaking news, flashed it on the screen. The U.S. will not make the semifinals of this World Cup. I think there's every possibility, if things are done right, we could make the semifinals of the next World Cup. And I think that's, if I were manager, what I'd be building towards. And it just doesn't feel like Berhalter's doing anything like that right now, based on his decisions to take these 30, 32, 34-year-olds as bench players instead of giving exposure to those young guys.
Yeah. I think that Jurgen Klinsmann would have a field day with this talent pool.
I have tried to not think about that, but
he would have a field day with this squad.
Yeah, I'm lockstep with you there. I do think this is a team that multiple past managers would have had a field day with, that just flat out didn't have the talent needed, but it was, we need to progress. And I get that from the U.S. soccer standpoint, that we were a little sick of being stuck in that, I hope we get it out of groups every 4 years. Like we do need to progress at some point, but Berhalter just doesn't seem that guy to give that progression to me.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. We're now at 38 minutes, so we've covered this selection exhaustively, and we'll continue to cover this U.S. squad leading up to the World Cup. I'm sure we'll do another couple 15-minute episodes here and there just to talk through some things. I think some other things we didn't mention. John Brooks has kind of been like a what is going on situation over the past several months, year even. I don't have an answer. I know he hasn't gotten a lot of minutes this year. I think he's with Benfica, maybe. Benfica. Talent-wise, though, he's been in Europe. He's started in Europe. If you want experience, it's not Aaron Long, in my opinion. It's John Brooks. However, that's neither here nor there. You've got midfielders like Gianluca Busio, who I knew he wouldn't make this squad, but that's another name. I mean, we're talking he's going to be a dude. It's just another one of those midfield names to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that is an example of embarrassment of riches. Like, he's a guy that absolutely would have been on this national team 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 8 years ago.
If you want another MLS name, I know it's kind of an FC Dallas homer pick for me, but Paxton Plumkill had an awesome year in the MLS, and he's been good when he's gotten chances with the U.S. team. He's a free flowing player, which is something we don't see a lot with the U.S. He's a free flowing player that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I can really just say that because I actually watched the MLS this year, so I kind of got an idea of some of these guys.
Good for you.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do our starting 11 though for this squad and then get it wrapped up and move on.
Yeah. So our starting 11, I think at goalkeeper, as we said, Matt Turner is our guy. Horvath has a wealth of experience at Bruges. Before that, Mold. Shout out my Michigan hometown guy, Josh Gatt, who played at Mold with Horvath. I think I did see a bit.
That's a name right there. That's a squad name.
I did see a bit of action, if you will, on Twitter about not saying that Turner is for sure the guy purely based on Horvath's experience. He played at Bruges for, I want to say, 5 years. He was at Forest last year helping them get their promotion. He went to Luton Town this year to try and help them get a promotion. So he is an extremely experienced keeper. However, I believe he's only played in 8 to 10 games this year. So his form is probably equal to, if not maybe slightly ahead of Turner's, but I don't think the form is there, and we saw Turner enough in qualification that I do think it'll be Turner. And then for backline, going left to right, Jedi Robinson, foregone conclusion. Walker Zimmerman, foregone conclusion. I think the other center back for me should be a foregone conclusion of Tim Ream. And then obviously Serginho Dest, rounding out that
St.
back
Louis
four.
boy. Shout out St. Louis, Missouri. That's
Yay, Missouri.
It's two Viking-looking center backs for the U.S.
I think that's half of why I like them, because of their look.
Thors back there, baby.
I am a huge fan of both pitch and appearance. I really do enjoy them.
Yeah.
Moving forward to the midfield, though, I think that's probably the biggest. Well, outside of striker, that's probably the biggest question mark right now.
What position? What formation are we playing? By the way, before we get into midfield,
I got a 4-3-3.
4-3-3. Okay,
it's what I believe fits the best for the team. It's what I prefer to see, so it's what I put together.
Sure.
I have McKinney and Adams with. I hate to do this to my guy Brendan. Probably going to have a Brendan jersey come the new year. But I do have Musa starting in the midfield over Brendan, and that is purely because I hinted at this earlier. I love the thought of a Brendan Aronson coming on in the 72nd minute of a tied game against Wales.
66th
okay.
minute.
Splitting hairs. 6 minutes, I'm off. But I love the guy, the thought of him coming on against Wales and just pressing the ever-living daylights out of really anybody but England. I do trust England's backline to be able to handle pressing.
But I do daughters back there,
which I hope for them he wouldn't be after his last 2 months, because that man turns over more balls leading to goals than anybody I've seen in the Premier League, and I hate Trent Alexander-Arnold. So that's saying a lot.
All world last year,
and he's been
just gone down the shitter this year.
Awful this year.
Yeah.
So I do think that is the question, is who's that third midfielder. I do think Adams and McKinney are locks. It'll be do we see Aronson or Musa? Personally, I would rather see Musa starting. I think he offers a little bit more creativity. I think a lot of what Aronson does is work-based, and that's something I would love to see come on in the 70th rather than starting from the get-go. And then the front three, I think two of the three are also foregone conclusions. Pulisic and Reyna, I think, are starting beyond a shadow of a doubt. And for me, at striker, I don't know if it's because he's a ginger. I don't know if it's because he plays for Norwich. And for whatever
he's good, he's awesome.
For whatever strange reason, I have a soft spot for Norwich, and I don't understand why. Because they played probably played the ugliest brand of football in all of the Premier League last year. It was disgusting.
If you watched Tottenham, last year,
yeah. Probably the ugliest brand of football last year in all of the Premier League. But I do have Josh Sargent as who I would have as my starting striker, as Reed tries to catch a fly out of midair like he's the Karate Kid. But if Josh Sargent can channel that Karate Kid and be ultra focused,
Nice.
I do think we've seen a lot of strong points from him this year at Norwich. He's in very, very top form. I think more top form than anybody we've seen.
Look, he capitalizes on his chances.
I will say I would be stunned to see him over Ferreira.
Yeah.
I fully expect to see Ferreira. I'm not being unrealistic here. This is just what my starting 11 would be, and I would have Josh Sargent in ahead of Jesus Ferreira.
Get Will Cox a contract, USA Soccer.
I mean, I think I could put a better lineup than Berhalter. What I do in-game is beyond me because this is not FIFA 23, but I think I could put out a better starting 11 than what Berhalter is going to show us on that first match day. But all of that being said, I do think it is an exciting World Cup for the U.S. I do think we're in a, as you said, a period of transition, but in a weird way. Like we've talked about Spain in a period of transition, Germany in a period of transition, and it's like kind of a quiet transition. For
They've
the U.S.,
also won World Cups in the last
12 years. Right, exactly. For the U.S., though, it's a very exciting period of transition because I think this is getting into a class of player that we haven't seen. For the U.S. at a starting 11 wide. Yes, we've had the Donovans. Yes, we've had the Dempseys. We had the Altidores who had some very phenomenal performances. But I think as a core, this is by far the most talented team we've seen.
It's a squad that in 4 years can go and play with the Portugals, the maybe not the Brazils or Frances, but those kind of second tier teams, say. Croatia, England. Portugal, England, those types of
Germany
teams.
In transition,
yeah.
Like in Italy, who missed this World Cup. Like there's no reason I can't see this U.S. men's national team making a push 4 years from now. But for right now, the focus is on Qatar. Yeah. I think we do have a very good side to get out of groups. I do think it is limited to getting out of groups unless we somehow win the group. If we win the group, I think there is a very good chance.
Mane-less Senegal.
Yeah, or even a Mane Senegal. Yeah. I wouldn't hate our chances. I think that is a very evenly competitive matchup. Obviously, if we draw Netherlands, if we finish second, I think anybody would be foolish to say we have a legitimate chance there. But it's an exciting time. Certainly some frustrating selections from Berhalter, but it is an exciting time. And I don't know, man. I'm just pumped. We're 11 days out from the World Cup starting. We're 13 days out from the first U.S. game. We're 2.5 weeks out from USA England on Black Friday. Like it is a very exciting time to be a U.S. men's national team fan, regardless of how you feel, likely negatively about some of the selections Berhalter made.
Yeah. Did I miss Reyna? Did you have Reyna in this tournament?
Yeah, no. He was my other wing-ish. Right? Yeah, he's on the right outside.
It's weird. I could have sworn he was a 10. I could have sworn he was a midfielder.
He is like that's where he I think is best. But we've seen a lot, especially late in qualifying when he was healthy, him playing out wide. It's not necessarily where I like him the best, but I think it fits more of a need, and he's a guy that can make that happen. There's nobody I would rather out on that right wing mid position than him at this time. Like I would love to have him as more of a 10. But I really it was a huge question. Back to Berhalter. That was a huge question I had on Berhalter in qualifying. When I saw Reyna out wide, I didn't like it on the surface, but he showed it worked well. And I just kind of anticipate that's where he is because we have so many central midfielders. You have to kind of find somebody that, hey man, like I want you to play on this side. I want you to start. Yeah. Where can you play? And I think Reyna out wide is the most likely of the options.
I think, man, if you have Tim Weah and Brendan Aronson coming off the bench, those are two very, very good subs that the U.S. has never had the luxury of having before.
Yeah, you compare that to over half of the teams in the tournament, and those are two very, very solid subs to bring off the bench. Obviously, again, not a Brazil, not a France. I'm not talking like that, but you can compete with that lower pot 2, upper pot 3, if those are the guys coming off the bench for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think once, I know we're talking this year, but once 2026 rolls around, you'll see the midfield developed enough to be able to move Reyna back to that number 10. Because
exactly.
You have a very well-developed, mature midfield, and you can play up through the middle, which will be very exciting. Any last thoughts on this announcement? Of course, there are last thoughts. We'll talk about them later on because we're coming up on our time limit here. But really good coverage of. I mean, I didn't expect us to get this in depth and this.
I love it, man.
Yeah, no,
we had such good reactions to our Group B and to our host city preview. So I am glad we were able to take some time and kind of dive in a little bit more to the U.S. men's national team. We are heavily focused on the show about the Premier League, but at the end of the day, we're American soccer fans. So it's exciting to have something worth talking about. You know, if we did this podcast in 2018, we'd be sitting here picking our noses with nothing to talk about. So it's exciting to have a real team to talk about in the World Cup. That's only 2 weeks away. So I'm super stoked. I do think we need to temper expectations a little bit, but I am very excited about what this club or national team, I should say, has to offer this year and then moving forward.
Last question I have for you. What do you think the expectations are to fans that aren't like us? Say one of your coworkers that doesn't watch soccer. What do you think they're expecting from the U.S. this year? Anything? They going into it blind? Do you know?
6 points out of the group minimum. I think every casual would expect us to beat a tiny country like Wales, and certainly nobody respects Iran soccer, because it's just not something. Even if you're not a soccer fan, you hear about at least.
You just don't think of
UK.
Athletes coming
You at least think
Iran.
about UK soccer. So Wales falls kind of in that. Jest, but you don't hear about Iranian soccer, and we talked about that in our Group B preview. We don't know a lot about it, so I certainly think everybody's expecting a minimum of 6 points. Well, if they even know what 6 points is, but when they look at it, they would expect us to come out with 2 wins out of group.
2 wins and a loss versus England. Probably.
Yes, I think every non-soccer following American would be like, yeah, we're not beating England, and I think. They're probably right. We probably won't beat England, but I think
a draw is much more likely than they think. Exactly. And I think if any of them saw us pull up against the Netherlands in the knockout stages, while Netherlands seems like a small country, I think even your average sport fan would know that we are overmatched in a matchup like that. Yeah. That's all on this U.S. squad for today, guys. We appreciate y'all listening. USA.
I believe. Oh wait, we stopped that, right?
Do you believe in miracles?
I believe that we will win a game or two.
I believe that we will win
a game or two.
Appreciate you guys listening. Y'all have a fantastic night. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, share with all your friends, family. Go ahead and get pumped for this World Cup. It's going to be fun, even though for club fans like Dylan and I, it's a little bit of a weird time, and we're struggling to get as amped about it. That's no reason y'all shouldn't. So make sure to share this video, share all of our group previews. We will talk to y'all next time. Thank you.